District 9 is bringing Derby Day to Birmingham, and it's your time to show up and show out. Join us at the Inslee Tuxedo Ballroom, Saturday, May 7th for the Derby Party, presented by Counselor Latanya Tate. Come dressed to impress in your best derby attire. Show-stopping hats and experience top-level entertainment, live racing on large-screen TVs, and of course, high fashion. This event is free and open to the public. It's Derby Day, sponsored by District 9, Saturday, May 7th from 2 until 7 p.m. at Inslee Tuxedo Ballroom. District 9 is bringing Derby Day to Birmingham, and it's your time to show up and show out. Join us at the Inslee Tuxedo Ballroom, Saturday, May 7th for the Derby Party presented by Counselor Latanya Tate. Come dressed to impress in your best derby attire. Show-stopping hats and experience top-level entertainment, live racing on large-screen TVs, and of course, high fashion. This event is free and open to the public. It's Derby Day, sponsored by District 9, Saturday, May 7th from 2 until 7 p.m. at Inslee Tuxedo Ballroom.
Happy Monday to happy Tuesday to each of you, and welcome to our show. This I told y'all we're doing double duty. I know y'all are only used to seeing me on Mondays, but for the next few weeks, you have the privilege of seeing my handsome face on Tuesdays as well. So we are back tonight with Meet the Candidate. We had a great session last night with our two candidates that we had on that were running for school board. So if you did miss that segment, you do have the option to go back and watch the replay. I would encourage you to watch the replay because we did talk about issues plaguing our community, our children, and our parents in our schools that need to be addressed, as we're going to do tonight with our two candidates running for state representative. As on last night, the promo that you heard after the countdown, we are encouraging everyone who's watching tonight, you're cordially invited to attend the District 9 as they go Derby style this weekend, this Saturday from 2 to 7 p.m. at the Tuxedo Ballroom in the beautiful downtown Inslee. And I know a lot of people are asking, ladies and men, if you don't have a hat, that don't let that deter you from attending, but you're encouraged to wear a hat. I don't know. You may see me pop through with the hat on. I don't know. So we'll just play that by ear, but we're encouraging you to attend. The best thing about it is that this event is free. Yes, you heard it right. This is free. This is something that Counselor Latanya Tate and her team have worked hard to bring to you. Free food, free entertainment. Deidre Gaddis will be some of the entertainment that will be there. And of course, you'll be able to watch the Derby and just have a great time. So if your schedules permit, again, this Saturday from 2 to 7 at the Tuxedo Ballroom in downtown Inslee, and you'll be hearing more about that again as we did last night. So I'm not going to delay the time because our first guest is backstage, and I'm excited to go ahead and get this conversation started. Our first guest this evening is Representative Neil Rafferty. He won the seat to state representative in 2018. And just to tell you a little bit about some of the things he has accomplished since being our state representative, 32 sponsored bills passed. Some of these bills include civil rights trailblazer. He was instrumental in expunging her criminal record. As we all know, she was one of the she was actually a young girl, but she was actually arrested prior to Rosa Parks' groundbreaking arrest during the civil rights movement. So he was responsible for having her record expunged, which is big. Cost of living increase for state employees, renewal of historic tax credit, task force on veteran suicide extended to prevent suicide among service members, veterans, and their families. And also the 9888 Study Commission to decriminalize mental illness and have health professionals or social workers respond to emergencies involving individuals suffering from mental illness or substance abuse. I don't know about y'all, but that is a lot, and that's only just a tip of those. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my extreme pleasure to present to some and introduce to others Representative Neil Rafferty.
Hey, everybody.
Good
Happy
evening.
to be here. Happy to join you.
Thank you for joining us. And so let's hit right in. I want to do something different than I did last night since you're already holding the seat. So I named some of your accomplishments. Like I said, those are just some of the things that you have accomplished. First, what I want you to do, because what I've noticed, a lot of people, when they vote for these seats, they kind of have like the wrong misinterpretation of what these elected officials do. So in your own definition, kind of tell us what a state representative does.
Well, I think that is a great way to start the conversation, because I advocate on multiple levels of government, but my job as a state representative is there's three things. We pass the Education Trust Fund budget, we pass the General Fund budget, which funds everything from Medicaid to prisons to you name it. And then we make laws. So we make laws that affect the whole state. We make laws that affect only local areas if we're doing local legislation. So that is what a state representative does. Now, I can also help advocate through if people are having issues with state agencies. So, for instance, with the COVID crisis, there's a lot of people trying to navigate the Department of Labor and the unemployment process, the SBA loan process for their small businesses. I was able to help over 2,000 people just kind of streamline that process there. I've helped people with anything from getting their taxes dealt with for the Alabama Department of Revenue, all the way to just getting folks hooked up to better care with the Veterans Administration and that kind of thing too. So while I have three main functions, I do advocate in a wide variety of roles. I hear a lot about potholes and other things that are affecting people's day-to-day lives. I'm always happy to hear those out and report those to the city councilors and let them know what's going on with it, and then see if there's anything I can do to help from in that capacity too. So, but those are the three things that mainly state representatives and state senators deal with.
Awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're just watching, this is Perspective Meet the Candidate. On our Tuesday edition, we do have current Representative Neil Rafferty, who is currently in Alabama House District Seat 54, and he is up for re-election. And one of the things I do want to praise you for, not only do you just limit your work to the work you do in Montgomery, but we see you working with Birmingham City councilors. We've seen pictures where you were just a few weeks ago present with Councilor LaTanya Tate in their community cleanup. Kind of talk about the importance of state representatives working with city councilors and state commissioners to get things done.
Well, I think one of the main things is that we have to make sure that community comes first. So while I'm working in Montgomery, my heart and my eyes are always towards community and what it is that they need. And that's part of being in service. And it's also a great way for me to get to know the residents better, to get to know the folks that I serve better, and the folks that serve them even better, so that we can have a better working, tangible relationship to collaborate and get things done. Oftentimes when things get done, it's not just one person. If anybody ever tells you that I did this all by myself, they are lying to you, because it is always a team approach. It is always the stakeholders and the residents that bring the concern up. Then it could be the city councilor that kind of takes charge and brings that voice to me, and then I can help bring other resources and different energy to it to help get stuff done. So it's a very important thing for me to have a working relationship with all levels of government, whether it be city councilors in Birmingham or Irondale, the city governments there, or if it has to do with the county commission, or with our federal Congress folks, Terry Sewell and Gary Palmer, who I share districts and boundaries with. So all the way to that level as well.
Okay. And now I want you to tell people what areas, if they live in, who can vote for you.
Absolutely. And this is a really good question, because it did change up just this past November. So it used to be, and the whole idea is that you want to make sure that counties and communities of interest remain whole. That is not what the Republicans did when they drew the map. So, but what they did do was make it to where they made precincts whole. So that means that if you vote at any particular precinct, you are in District 54. You're in that respective Senate district, wherever that might be. So if you vote at Mount Hebron over there in Thomas, AV Mount Zion up in Druid Hills, and that area up there. If you vote in the Norwood Community Center, if you vote in Jefferson County Courthouse, Willowwood, Girls Inc., Avondale Elementary, Hope Community Church, New Rising Star, Barrett or Robinson Elementary School, and Irondale Senior Citizen Center, then you are a constituent of House District 54. So if you vote at any of those precincts, you are a constituent of House District 54.
Okay, awesome. And what we're going to do, we're going to start the way we're going to do it tonight. I'm going to talk about a few issues that our viewers want to hear your take on, and then I'll allow you to talk about some of those things that you really didn't complete during your first tenure, but you're looking to complete now.
Yeah.
And then the last 5 to 10 minutes, you'll be with us till about 7:40, 7:45. And then those last 5 minutes, we will allow questions from the viewing audience. So
Great.
viewing audience, if you do have questions, go ahead and post those. And also we ask that everyone tag somebody and share those, because I know several people that watch this that live in those areas. Don't try to act like you don't live in those areas, because a lot of people know where your houses are. So we do have your representative on who you are able to vote for re-election. First thing that I want to start off by talking about is education. This is a big thing. We know that there were 2 bills. One, thankfully, is kind of on hold to next year. But there were two bills that were trying to get passed, and they did come with controversy. The first bill, we'll start with that one. Governor Kay Ivey's stance on a 3rd grader being able to read at a 3rd grade level before they're promoted to the 4th grade. Can you tell us your take on that and the work you're going to do with constituents? Do you feel that bill needs to be revised, or just tell us your stance on that?
Well, so we've been working on a bill, and I supported a bill that would exempt 3rd graders, particularly those affected by the COVID years. What we need to do is make sure that the schools that with these children aren't necessarily held back, but have all the extra and additional support they need. This is what it talks about when I talk about my campaigns about equity. It's talking about making sure that those that need the most help get the help that they need. Not everybody has, parents that have master's degrees and jobs where they can sit down and teach and tutor their kids to read. They need reading coaches to help them get through that process and make sure that they're literate at the appropriate level. But it will take resources to make sure that there's reading coaches that are able to get our kids to that level where they need to be. But COVID, we lost a lot of learning, particularly here in Birmingham City schools. We saw a huge drop off the attendance, and that had mostly to do with the fact that some of these kids just did not have, it was the digital divide. They either did not have access to Wi-Fi or they didn't have it in their house. And I know that the school board tried to do what they could with the Wi-Fi buses, but I know kids that were doing homework at McDonald's because there was nowhere else to do the work that they needed to do. Really, we got to give these kids some credit that were able to go through the unprecedented trauma of what COVID-19 did to them in some of their most formative years. Make sure that we have some sympathy and compassion, but also make sure that we're giving them all the tools they need to succeed, to move forward, and not just holding them back and causing embarrassment or whatever that case is, because there's a lot of children that fall into that category right there, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault.
Absolutely. The second thing I wanted to talk about would be the bill pertaining to critical race theory. When I heard this really hurt my heart, because I can recall being in high school, particularly when you had the option to select your history courses, where you were privy to take things such as Alabama history, where you will focus on the history that took place in Alabama, American history, which a large portion of that was on the civil rights movement, which again, we're going back to Alabama and Birmingham. And those teachers that taught, not only did they have a passion for it, some of those teachers, they actually lived through those things. So you got to see that firsthand perspective on, hey, this is what I went through. I was one of those students that was jailed, or, I found out later years that my father, he arrested some of those children that were marching. So
Wow.
to hear the stance on that, where teachers won't be able to teach from their perspective, how does that make you feel? And yeah, just kind of talk to us about that.
Well, let's look at this. So the first bit is actually the good news, that bill died. It died in the Senate, so it did not become law.
Okay.
The bad part is that it's part of a nationwide agenda
Hmm.
to create division and to create distraction from the real issues that our children have right now. So I don't know if it's going to come back next quadrennium, but I would not be surprised if it did, because it's just part of that national Republican strategy to whitewash our history, make it all sound like it's all warm, fuzzy, unicorns and rainbows, and continue the mythology that this country is somehow perfect. Now, we are an amazing country and we are capable of so much, but we have got to reckon with our past. We have got to acknowledge the wrongs and the sins of our past in order to move forward as one people and as one country, united under liberty and justice for all. That's the only way to do it. And if you're sitting there whitewashing it and you're saying, not telling the full story of slavery, to sharecropping, to redlining, to keeping to banking and credit discrimination, to these real issues of generational wealth that people of color have had to suffer through for the past 400 years, then we're not telling the truth. And we're not reckoning with what needs to be said and what needs to be done. The reason why I guess this became an issue is because it makes some people feel uncomfortable. But it doesn't make me feel, I'm a white guy, right? Like, let's be obvious, right? Y'all can't see me on screen. I'm a white guy. This stuff does not offend me. This is the stuff that white people need to know in order to understand how we can be best allies to our neighbors and our friends and our parishioners and people we go to school with who have more melanin. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's just some silly. I hate to say silly because it's very serious what they're trying to do, but we have got to have these frank conversations in order to move forward as one people and one nation.
Absolutely. The next thing, and I probably should have saved this for the end, but I'll go ahead and talk about it now. The lottery. For years, this has been an ongoing issue, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I can even remember as a kid, I think we're around the same age, if not the same age. I remember hearing this as a kid. So again, it failed during this session, the state legislature. Let's talk about plans to really put a bill in place from your perspective that you think it will pass eventually.
So the lottery, you're right. So this is something that's been going on since at least, I think, 1999 with the no lottery bumper stickers that you used to see on everybody's car and that kind of stuff. We are past that. We are now at a point where this has overwhelming bipartisan support to get a lottery through. The thing is that if we're going to do a lottery, then we got to do it right, because it will be a constitutional amendment and the people of Alabama will have the chance to vote on it as well. Now, this past lottery bill there was nothing in it that was equitable. There was nothing in it. It wasn't the best deal for the people of Alabama. And it didn't even come to the House floor for a vote. Now, the last year's bill was very comprehensive, allowed for gaming, allowed for scholarships, allowed for healthcare, allowed for a lot of different things. And that's kind of more the broader picture bill that we need to be looking at. We can't just be looking narrowly at a paper lottery, because it won't be the best deal for the people of Alabama. And when I say equity for this past bill, there's just this past one that did not come through. They were talking about like an equal distribution of the funds for scholarships, not based on need and not based off of those that needed it the most. In fact, you could have used some of the scholarship funds to go and pay for boarding school. So, I mean, we're not talking about that. That's not the kind of lottery that I could get behind and I could stand behind. It would need to be something far more comprehensive. It had to be a better deal for Alabama, and it had to be something that provided for those who have been disaffected the most by our political culture and by our history.
And if there was to be a bill supporting an education-based lottery for you to vote in favor of that bill, how would that bill need to look for you?
That bill would need to be, like I said, comprehensive. It would need to be comprehensive. It would need to focus on making sure that we're retaining and keeping the best and brightest here in Alabama, that they stay here to get educated. Right now, University of Alabama has more out-of-state students than they do in-state students.
Mhm.
That shows the state of higher education in Alabama. So it would need to be, and make sure that we're giving it to students based off of the needs. So if we have kids that worked really hard in a school district that was underfunded, that did not have the same kind of support network that some of these richer, more affluent school districts have, then that kid, in my opinion, deserves more money. To be able to pay for school, because we're not just paying for school. School's expensive, not just because of tuition. We're talking about books. We're talking about transportation. We're talking about room and board. We're talking about eating. I mean, we're talking about other things that students will need in order to make sure that they can succeed in school. So what we don't want to do is set up kids to fail by giving them some money for tuition, but then they can't afford room and board. They can't afford books. They can't afford food while they're there. So then, where are they? So that's what an education lottery needs to look like to me. It needs to go back to the folks who need it the most.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, again, if you're just tuning in, you're watching Perspective Meet the Candidate. Tonight is our state representative tonight. Right now we have current state representative Neil Rafferty, who is running for re-election for House seat 54. And then in a few moments, we will have Nina Taylor, who is running for House seat District 60. So you don't want to go anywhere. And again, if you have questions, go ahead and start posting those questions. We will make sure that we answer as many questions as we can during the last 5 to 10 minutes with our segment with Representative Rafferty. The next section that I want to kind of delve into a little bit is mental illness. So, of course, I did read off one of the accomplishments that you did. You made sure that all of those that served in the war, such as veterans, they did have resources to get assistance with mental illness, which you did serve in the war. So thank you for your service. But let's kind of talk about expanding that. Everyone doesn't serve in the war.
Right.
As we've all read, Mrs. Judd, the mother to Winona Judd, she did pass away from a mental illness related issue. Talk about making sure that every citizen, not just in your district, because these are things you work with your constituents, but every citizen in the state of Alabama having resources to address the effects of mental illness.
The first thing that needs to be done, and I'll say this ad nauseum, is we need to expand Medicaid. We need to that's the only way to get more beds here. That's the only way to get more mental health professionals here that can actually treat. Right now, we are just above and beyond our capacity, where we cannot treat everybody because we do not have enough beds, even if we had the coverage, because people are leaving. Our mental health professionals are leaving the state. So that needs to be the first and foremost. Second, we need long-term case management for people suffering from serious mental illness. We need people that check in, that say, hey, how's it going taking your medication? Right now, it is all triage, and then you bandage up the wound with a 30-day supply of medicine when they're stabilized, and then send them back on their own. And then as soon as they run out of medication, they might be worried about survival again, where they're no longer worried about the medication. They're just worried about eating, shelter, and other more immediate needs. So we need to address housing. We need to address food insecurity. We need to address case management and making sure that these folks who are suffering from mental illness have all the resources they can to take care of themselves. because you have a choice between paying for your medication that treats your schizoaffective disorder, or you have a choice between feeding your children or your animals or paying your rent. Which one are you going to do?
Absolutely.
Now, I mean, people will say that, well, you can't take care of others unless you can take care of yourself. And that's really easy to say when you're in a privileged position, where you have enough money, where you can actually afford to make those decisions. But that's not what we're seeing. Most of the people that we see who are homeless are suffering from substance use disorder and cannot get treatment even if they wanted it to. We are seeing people who have untreated mental illness, who just don't have access to a bed in order to get the treatment that they want. And even if they do get the treatment, there's still that lack of that long-term case management that they're going to need from there. We also need to make sure, just for the everyday folks, make sure that they have access to mental health counseling. That was another bill that I passed, which was expanding the role of telepsych and telecounseling to allow out-of-state providers to be able to practice in the state as long as they're within, they're within the compact, which means we all have the same kind of regulatory board credentialing. So as long as they have that, then they can practice here. So that can give people access to behavioral and mental health services that they can get through online even. So it doesn't even have to be something where they have to go to the doctor's office to get evaluated. But once again, then we have an issue of who has access to broadband, who has access to, we're again dealing with the digital divide again with that as well. So you can see that these disparities that we're talking about with the basic infrastructure affect not just, what you think it does. It affects everything from education to mental health. And we have got to be drawing on the basics, and that's what we've got to be focusing on. No more of this piecemeal stuff that we do where we're like, we'll fix an issue here, fix an issue there. It's like you're slapping a piece of tape here for another hole to pop up here, and there's only so many pieces of tape you have. We need to rebuild the whole thing.
Absolutely. I love it. We have about probably about right at 15, 16 minutes left. I want you to take this time to talk about two to three issues that are very pressing towards you, and you're looking forward to really working with your constituents to get bills passed where it would make things better for all citizens of Alabama. Something that you didn't get around to in your first term.
Well, one thing that I've been pushing for has been so maternal and infant health has been a big issue of mine and big passion for mine ever since I got into office. Okay. We have a dismal maternal mortality rate. We have a dismal infant mortality rate. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that 42% of women do not have OBGYN care within their own county. So they can't even access that prenatal care. So once again, we need to really focus and hammer out the details as far as how we're going to make sure that these women have providers that are culturally competent and ready to take on the task. Sometimes that means, that includes public transportation too. And when I say public transportation, I'm not just talking about urban centers like where I represent. We're talking about rural public transportation as well. We used to have a robust rural public transportation system that would be able to take people to that doctor, take people to work, even if they couldn't afford a car or a vehicle at the time. So that's one thing. The second thing would be that we need to. I introduced the Alabama Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, and all this did was make sure that a woman or anybody, any pregnant employee, never had to choose between a healthy pregnancy and the dignity of earning a living for their growing family. Alabama is, I think, 50th in female workforce participation. if we are going to build the workforce of the future, and we keep talking about all these jobs coming down here, then we need to make sure that we're not just taking care of those companies that are bringing the jobs down here. We need to be taking care of the Alabamians that are going to be working in those jobs and their families. So that was a big part. And this wasn't, it wasn't a huge anti-business bill. This is all low, no cost stuff in order to help them out. We're talking about like having a water bottle, having a stool, having a longer break, having more frequent bathroom breaks to prevent issues and complications from pregnancy that can arise. Something else that we need to really dig down and hamper down to is our education, how we fund education. We need to scrap the foundation program, which is based off teacher units, and it needs to be equitable and it needs to be adequate. And it needs to be more fairly distributed money. Now, I don't want to get too much into the weeds with that one right now. We could do a whole segment on that one if we wanted to. But I'll say that there's a great book called The Least of These that breaks this down by a law professor down in Alabama. And there's a great paper in the Alabama Psychiatric Association that discusses this whole issue as well. So I'm happy to provide those resources to anybody that wants them, or direct you to them. But you can read more. I just don't want to get into the weeds because it is pretty dense.
Gotcha. And go ahead and give us one more thing. We're actually still good on time.
One more thing, like one of my big priorities I still want to work on.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we need to, education, there's an easier one that we can talk about, which is dual enrollment programs. This is what I'm talking about when we're talking about innovation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but I was growing up where everyone was like, you got to go to college, you got to go to college, you got to go to college, you got to go to college. And now we have all these college graduates. We have $1.2 trillion in student debt that's accumulated from that.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have tradespeople. We don't have people that can work with their hands, that can weld, that can build, that can, program. So we need to have dual enrollment programs where high schoolers can go get a certification. So when they graduate high school, they're career ready. They're ready to go. We need to have dual enrollment programs so that when that kid graduates, they already have their English composition and their math credits out of the way. So college is a lot cheaper for them. So they don't have to pay as much for college from there. So dual enrollment is going to be a big one. We also need universal pre-K. We need to do something about childcare because we have folks who are either living in single income families with one family member that has to work. And COVID really exposed this quite a bit too. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do with, the child when I'm supposed to actually go to work? So we need universal pre-K and we need more child care tax credits, just like what Biden and the Biden administration provided earlier in the COVID stimulus.
Okay. And since we're talking in education, what I'll do, I'll give one more question. We'll hit our viewers' questions, then give you your final question to close out for the evening. Teachers, like I stated, since we're talking about education, we've seen this in the news the last couple of weeks. Teachers, a lot of them are feeling now like they're working, those that are working. Of course, we know a lot are retiring if they do have the years to qualify to retire. A lot, even if they don't have the years to qualify, they're like, no, I'm sick of this. I'm going to find another career. This ain't it no more. No, let me just walk away and say I was a teacher. But we've heard teachers talk about recently that they don't have adequate resources to teach their students. And if they do have the adequate resources, they don't have enough time actually to work at school on the things for students. A lot of them are now saying that they have to take work home, which, this is something not out of the norm because my dad is on now. And I remember for years, especially when I got old enough, he would bring papers home that needed to be graded. And I was always one of the ones to grade papers. But now we're hearing teachers talking about they have to do their plan books at home. They have to do things that they should be doing at school, at home. As a state representative, how do you plan to address this issue to make education a great field, an enjoyable field, where teachers can continue to want to teach in the field and we can continue to recruit new and upcoming teachers that do have the passion to educate our children?
Absolutely. I'd love to talk on this one. My mother's a teacher. So I know that when she came home, a retired educator. So when she came home, I remember her sitting down and writing her lesson plans and getting ready. She took it very seriously because she was a true professional.
Okay.
And that's what we want. We want to keep true professionals who care about their jobs, who care about properly educating, who care about properly doing what they signed up to do. Not just signed up to do, but went to school, got educated, had a passion and a desire to do this. We need to make sure that we are, and we are facing a crisis right now too, because I think there was a study that I saw that where just 10 years ago, we had something like 16 to 20% of college grads wanted to be teachers, wanted to be educators. And we're now down below 4%.
Wow.
So we're seeing a huge drop in people that even want to be educators. But here's the thing. There is no more of an important professional position than an educator. So we have got to treat them like the professionals that they are, which means that we have got to get the parents to support them, the schools to support them. We've got to make sure that we are paying them decent, not just a livable wage, but a wage for a professional who has dedicated their life and their role to doing this. I think we have this idea that teachers are just, overpaid babysitters, and that is not what they are. We all owe something to teachers, teachers in our life. Every single one of us do. You wouldn't be where you were if you didn't have at least one teacher that was able to touch your heart and soul in a way that no one else could. I know I wouldn't be.
Absolutely.
So we've got to make sure that we are treating teachers like the professionals that they are, the professionals that they deserve. In some countries, if we want to look at like Germany, okay, they pay teachers like they pay doctors, okay, because they understand that they are important and they are fundamental to having a high skilled and a high functioning society. So it's our choice. It's our choice. What are we going to do about it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So here are our two questions from the audience, and then I'll ask you your one final question, allow you to give final statements. And then before you leave, we'll also allow you to share your contact information if people are interested in helping you campaign, canvas, work with you on election day. Our first question, and I have to say this one because she would get both you and I, this comes from Mama Diane Garrison. Your stance on the new gun law. And if you don't mind sharing, how did you vote on that? And then just how you feel about that whole law.
That new gun law, which is has a couple of names. The proponents of it called it constitutional carry. I was calling it permitless carry. I voted and fought tooth and nail against it. I voted no. I published an op-ed on it that got me targeted by the NRA, by the way. So be it, bring it on. But it was our Alabama already has very loose and lax gun laws, but this is our one stopgap that we had to keep us from 6,000 individuals who should not have firearms who now are able to get them. So this is something, and as the gun violence is ravishing our communities, this is something that they didn't want to hear about. They didn't want to hear the real human toll of that gun, of what they were doing with that gun bill. It was just pure ideological nonsense. So that's what I got to say about that bill.
Okay. Our next question from a viewing audience. Give us your thoughts on spending COVID-19 funds on building new prisons.
I hate that. So $400 million of our ARPA funds that could have gone to reading coaches, that could have gone to building roads, that could have gone to expanding broadband, that could have gone to all of these other things that actually help people. They decided to allocate and put them into prisons. And they did it without accepting any of the criminal justice reforms that the Democrats introduced. at the same time. They did it without any of the reforms and overhauls that we need to see in boards of pardons and paroles. They think that we can just build our way out of this problem, right? Without really addressing, all the other systemic issues that we need to address, without addressing the fact that we're still arresting and putting in prison people that have small amounts of cannabis on them. So that we still have these enormous racial disparities in our boards of pardons and parole, where if you have a white applicant and a black applicant, same crime, same time, that white applicant still has 2 times the likelihood of getting granted parole and having a successful application than that black applicant, even though the black population within the prison is significantly higher than the white one. No one's talking about that. I mean, excuse me. There's plenty of people talking about that one. There's no one in decision making. There's no one in the higher echelons that can make these decisions that are discussing it, except for a few, for the Democrats. That's it. That is it. But they think that we can build our way out of this program, build our way out of this problem of prison overcrowding, and that is just absolutely not true. Now, did we have unjust prisons? Did the DOJ come and say, you need to fix your prisons? Yes. They did not say we need to build brand new ones, though. They said that your prison conditions were inhumane so badly that they're violating their constitutional rights. But building new prisons isn't going to just solve that issue. But that's what they're saying. But that's what they did. They went on and did it. People should be infuriated. They should be outraged by what the Republicans did with that money. 80 million, not even a quarter of that amount went to hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a quarter of that amount.
Yeah, that can turn into a whole nother conversation. It really can, a whole podcast by itself. So our last question, we know that Mother's Day is on Sunday. We're going to do the same thing that we did last night to kind of close us out, and I give you 2 minutes on this one. Kind of talk about your mama your own way and why she's precious to you and she holds a special place in your heart.
Well, y'all gonna make me cry because I'm sitting here actually looking at her right now. So, why is my mama special? My mama taught me to love, taught me to fight, and to know when to do, and to fight with love at the same time. Get over here. Y'all can meet my mama while I'm actually over at her house right now. So
Hi, Mom.
This is the woman that raised me, that taught me everything I know.
Along with his daddy.
Well, of course, yeah. We can't leave Dad out there. Taught me how to read. I love my mama. Well, I mean, who doesn't love their mama?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, no, I wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't for her. Particularly in those early, your adolescence years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, talk about somebody that always has your back.
Absolutely.
So, to all the mamas out there, thank you for everything you do. I know it's not an easy job, particularly when you have pain in the ass kids like me, like I probably was. But just know that with enough love and with a stern hand, you can whip them into shape. So just thank you to all the mamas out there. You are appreciated. You are loved.
Absolutely. Well, Neil, I want to thank you for sharing this time with us, and just to let you know, you are part of the Perspective family now. So anytime that you would like to come on and talk about something that we should be aware of that's going on in Montgomery, or just an event that you have coming up, reach out to me. You have my contact, and we will get you on. And before we let you go, tell folks how they can contact you if they're interested in working with you on your campaign, donating, even working with you on Election Day.
So you can always visit the website, reprafferty.com. That's reprafferty.com. There you can sign up for the newsletter there. During legislative session, I give about a weekly update. When it's not legislative session, it's more about a month or every other month or so. But there's also in there how you can get involved with the campaign if you're interested. I mean, we really do need all the volunteers that we can get right now. If you'd like to reach out to me personally, just to ask me a question, feel free to send me an email at reprafferty@gmail.com. Again, that's just reprafferty@gmail.com. And you can also just hit the contact. If that's too much, you can also just hit that contact us button on the reprafferty.com page, if that's easier for you. So.
And he will respond. I can tell you that from he is very reachable to everyone that contacts him.
Sometimes it goes to junk, but I do check my junk filters as well. So so rest assured, just if I don't get immediately to you, I always check it later. I always check that at least once a week. So
gotcha. So ladies and gentlemen, again, this is Representative Neil Rafferty representing Alabama House District Seat 54, who is running for re-election. And so on May the 24th, again, tell us again who can vote for you.
So if you vote if you are in the Thomas neighborhood, if you are in East Thomas, Eden Ridge, Evergreen Bottom, Fountain Heights, if you're in Central City, the downtown Loft area, if you are in Woodlawn, if you are in Gate City, Harris Homes, if you vote at Oliver Elementary, if you vote in Crestwood North, Crestwood South, if you're in Forest Park, Crestline, Eastwood, that western part of Irondale, if you are in Eastlake, then you are more than likely in District 54. So if you vote at Robinson, New Rising Star, Barrett, Irondale Elementary. I can post that too if that would be helpful. Just post which precincts are in District 54. But Mount Hebron, Mount Zion, Norwood Community Center, Jefferson County Courthouse, Willow Wood, Girls Inc., Crestway Baptist, New Rising Star. I don't know. I feel like I'm repeating the same ones now. So
yeah, after we take you backstage, if you would post those in the comments, then I can kind of pin that way. People that replay will be able to see those. So again, I want to thank you for being a part, and we wish you best wishes, and we look forward to waiting to see what the outcome will be, and we look forward to continue working with you as our state representative for seat 54.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to join you today.
All right, have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So ladies and gentlemen, we are complete with our first half. Again, that was Neil Rafferty with Alabama for state representative. He is the current incumbent seeking to be elected. My words kind of got tongue there for seat 54. So as we did last night, we're going to do a brief commercial break. Our next candidate is already backstage ready, and we will come back on after the brief commercial break. So don't go anywhere. And if you have questions for Nina Taylor when we get to the question and answer portion, go ahead and get those questions ready to post in the comments. We'll be right back.
What's going on, gentlemen?
First Kingdom Records is going broke.
Redeeming Records reached out and...
You think I'd license my song to Caesar?
Mom, if we don't expand gospel, we'll end up irrelevant. I'm in charge of A&R. I scout talent.
You're in charge because I put you in charge.
Give it up for my wife,
the queen of gospel music. I've been asked to hold a memorial for the Williams girl.
The dead stripper?
Danny loved music. Can someone explain the purpose for the pain? Deliver us. Oh, no.
Deliver me. Don't cast me down with the sin of be. Trample my enemies.
This girl work here? I just want to talk.
So talk.
Can we stop, please? You have a God-given gift.
You looking at it?
You have over 2 million hits. She's everything Kingdom needs. She can reach people that you never could.
You set me up?
You and my mom got history, but she's a star, right? Or am I crazy?
Crazy like I was the first time I heard your mother sing.
You know who I am, and I can't change that.
I don't care where you come from, only where you're going. Your reign is over.
Is that a declaration of war?
It's time to tell you a story.
District 9 is bringing Derby Day to Birmingham, and it's your time to show up and show out. Join us at the Inslee Tuxedo Ballroom, Saturday, May 7th for the Derby Party, presented by Counselor Latanya Tate. Come dressed to impress in your best Derby attire. Show-stopping hats and experience top-level entertainment, live racing on large-screen TVs, and, of course, high fashion. This event is free and open to the public. It's Derby Day, sponsored by District 9, Saturday, May 7th from 2 until 7 p.m. at Inslee Tuxedo Ballroom.
All right, we are back with Perspective Meet the Candidate 2022. And the first clip, for those who weren't on last night, that is Kingdom Business. That is a new feature film that is coming to BET Plus. Notice I didn't say BET. You do have to have the BET Plus app to watch that. You simply type in BET Plus and you could download that. That show premieres on May the 19th, and it's being produced by Holly Carter, Kirk Franklin, and Devon Franklin. So it's going to be a very great cast starring Yolanda Adams and a host of others. And also, as a reminder, District 9 goes Derby style this Saturday from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the beautiful Tuxedo Ballroom in downtown Inslee. The event is absolutely free. So all you have to do is show up, and you're asked to dress to impress. If you don't have a hat, don't worry about it. Just go and have a great time. There's going to be lots of great food, fun, and entertainment. So at this time, I'm excited. I'm going to bring on our next candidate. Before we do this, let me do these reminders. I failed to do so. Yeah, we are 21 days until the May the 24th election. So this is why we are bringing all these candidates before you, to make sure that you cast your vote and you know who would be the best candidate, that would be the best candidate to reflect you and what you and your community stands in need of. Again, May the 9th is the deadline to register to vote in the May the 24th primary election. So please do that. And then we'll mention the absentee deadlines at the end. So at this time, I am excited to bring our next candidate on, who is actually a candidate running for Alabama State Representative seat 60. Nina Taylor has been an advocate for others since she was a small child. Today, she is a 19-year veteran and captain of the largest paid fire department in Alabama, where she utilizes her spare time to do the same, advocate. Not only does she live in District 60, but she has worked as a firefighter in the district for the past 6 years. Nina is also a teacher at Midfield High School. Her motto, greatness has to be taught to our children so they can become productive young adults we can all be proud of. In her spare time, she runs 3 small businesses and knows the importance of community. Nina is a daughter, sister, mother, and aunt to an awesome family. So we're going to let Nina tell you a little bit more about herself, because I think I've given you enough. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, Miss Nina Taylor.
Hello, hello.
Hey. Thank you for joining us this evening.
How are you this evening?
I am good. So to get us started, tell us in a few words, how would you describe Nina Taylor?
Energetic, outgoing, and ready to work.
Okay. I love it. I love it. Already talking like a state representative.
I hear
So
you.
to get us started, I always ask candidates this who are seeking the position.
Mm-hmm.
What made you run for this position? Because there had to be something that you are seeing in previous administration that is like not sitting well with you. So what was that breaking point, and then what was that thing that made you say, you know what, okay, I've got to run?
Well, I've always wanted to run for public office. I just needed to find my fit. I
Okay.
think that's what it was for me. And so what I did is I did a bit of studying is what I decided to do. I decided to take some time out, kind of study and figure out exactly what I needed to do in order to get where I needed to be. But what stood out for me was, oh, and I've said it so much, is that I took a current look at my district and it didn't sit well with me.
Okay.
I took a current look at my state legislator that was working in my district, and I just was unhappy with the performance that was happening. I looked at the district in a whole, not just in one portion, but a whole. And I looked at the schools that were there, because I'm an educator, and I looked at the schools that were there, and I was just really disappointed with the showing of what was happening, because I visit these schools and I ask a lot of the students, do they know anything about government? And they didn't. I asked them, did they know anything about their legislators? They didn't. But they did know about the county commissioner. They could tell me a couple of county commissioner names, but they could not tell me any legislators. And I thought that was rather strange, because the legislators live in the community. So if you live in the community, people should know who you are.
Absolutely.
If you are living in the community, you should be shopping at those grocery stores. You should be visiting those businesses. You should be visiting those schools. And for 3 terms, that was not happening. So in the middle of that 3rd term is when I realized, at that point, I was like, I definitely need to make a change.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. And those who are watching tonight, before we continue, this isn't a bashing segment. What we're talking about, and y'all know me, we do candid podcasts even when it's not election season, but we allow our candidates to come on and speak the truth, because a lot of times what goes on is, if you're not really involved in politics, you could think, oh, I voted for he or she the last time and they seem to be doing a pretty good job. But because you're not in the surface and you don't keep up with the things the way you should, and y'all know me, I'm never going to tell you to vote for or against the candidate. That's your personal choice. We just want you to vote. But these Meet the Candidate podcasts that we're doing, they're strictly for you to learn about the individuals that are running in your district, whether some are running for re-election and some are new candidates, such as Ms. Taylor. And we're giving you the opportunity to learn more about her, learn about her platform. And then you take the time, you look at where your district has been, you look at where you know they could go, and you take the time and you vote with your best conscience.
Right.
That you think is going to be the right person for the job. And before we continue, it was so ironic to me, and I didn't realize it until we had our first conversation. I know your district because I have a lot of friends and relatives on the Farversdale side. And then when you talked about Smithfield, my grandmother, my mom actually grew up in Smithfield. My aunt still lives in the family's home house, so I know all about these districts. And so knowing what these districts once were and could be, those are exciting things that we need to talk about.
Yes.
So you told us what prompted you to run. Let's get into some of the issues, and then if there are things that you want to add, we'll definitely give you the opportunity to do so. And those who are watching, if you missed the first segment, we did have Representative Neil Rafferty on, so you can go back and watch the entire thing. But if you do have questions for Nina, you can go ahead and post those in the comments, and we'll take the last 10 minutes to ask her your questions. So I'm going to flip.
I love questions.
Let's start with the lottery.
Yeah.
This has been a hot topic going on. You're older than me by a few years, but I know this is something you even heard a lot growing up. When elected to this seat, how do you plan to work with constituents? It'll actually be a 2-part question. The first part, when elected to this seat, how do you plan to work with constituents to get a realistic bill in place that will pass, and that we can finally get that yes vote that we've been waiting on for years?
Right. So let's be very clear about the lottery. We're surrounded. Florida, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Georgia all have lotteries. So we're just kind of sprawling out to all of these other places, which I, for the life of me, back when Siegelman was in office, thought that we would get a lottery definitely before Mississippi, but we didn't. But what has happened is bills are created and they start in the state house. And in the state house, as it's been so eloquently taught and said over and over again, that the job is to pass bills, but it's not that they have to be done. It just says that they can, right? It's 105 seats. 77 are Republican, 28 are Democrat. Up until 2010, Democrats had the majority. Plain and simple. What happened was the Republicans decided to play the long game, and we played the short game. And in playing the short game, everybody redistricted during census years, and they got their little areas because they didn't want to reach out here and reach out there. And I tell people all the time, Melissa has no problem reaching out to Keisha and saying, hey, I need your vote. But for some reason, it's always been different the other way around. So in order for you to do that, there has to be a bill that both will have, that will be solid, that will benefit both. And we've struggled with that with each time we have a lottery bill that comes by. They gut it, they chop it, they screw it, they filibuster, and that is because I think we have a lot of people there that are still bitter, that they want it their way, or they feel like their way is not the right way. So there has to be a person that's going to be able to whip everybody into a compromise, because you're going to have to compromise, especially when you are the super minority in that. But in that compromise, I tell people all the time, when you compromise, even if you are given this, we have always been a people that have taken something small and making it very large, and to be able to capitalize on it. Most of your most grand inventors didn't have a third grade education, and they were the minority, and they were the most prolific draftsmen. So those same people that were getting inventions put in their names were not really the true inventors. The true inventors were people that looked like you and I. So for me, it's I know what you're trying to do. Let me show how you can make it better. And then we can figure out a way to bring that information back to our people where it would collectively benefit the community as a whole. Because where I am in District 60, it is not an all Black community. There is pocketed. It's pocketed and segregated in small pockets. Adamsville is not, it's like half and half. Fultondale is half and half. Forestdale is Black. Pratt City is Black. Smithfield is Black. College Hills is Black, But I look at all of those districts that are Black, and they're in a food desert. Fultondale is not in a food desert, but Smithfield is in a food desert. College Hills is in a food desert. Daniel Payne is in a food desert. Pratt City is in a food desert. Graysville is in a food desert. Brookside is in a food desert. I have mentioned over half of District 60. Now you look at other districts and they don't look like that. They don't look like that. So when we're talking about funding, money, those type of bills bring economic stimulus to the community, especially with the lottery when it funds education. You look at Parker, and then you look at J.O., then you look at Fultondale, and then you look at Minor. I mean, come on. We need that bill to get through, and I am willing to work. I don't care if it's we at 3:00 in the morning and we sitting there looking at each other and say, okay, what next? We're going to make this happen. And you have to have someone that has that type of energy to do it. I mean, sometimes I work 24-hour shifts at a time. I'm willing to go that extra mile. I'm ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The next thing I want to talk to, we didn't talk to Neil about this, but healthcare. Every citizen in Alabama, they do deserve affordable healthcare.
Yes.
Let's talk about working with your constituents to make that a reality, that every Alabamian does have access to affordable health care.
Medicaid has been chopped and screwed so many times that you really don't know what it is anymore. It's a shell of what it is. Now, I'm going to give you a prime example. Yesterday, I ran a call on a young lady, and her son had mental health issues. And he had walked out of the house. And of course, he's a bigger size because he's like a preteen, early teenager. And the police have to get involved. And she's trying to get his medication. And now, because of what happened with COVID, the medication is coming through the mail. She's having to jump through hoops. And then they're saying that she would have to pay for this. She would have to pay for that. And I'm like, this is what our medical system has come to. And unfortunately, the poorest of our populations, which means your Title I school areas, which ties education into medical funding, are the ones that are hit the hardest. Your poorest people are hit the hardest. So like other countries, other places, sometimes even other cities in the United States, they have worked together in order to have affordable health care that everyone can afford. It's about passing that legislation that benefits everyone as a whole. And I'm committed to that because those two definitely tie together. Because when you're talking about healthcare and education, you're talking about education and also mental health too, because that goes with it. Healthcare encompasses everything. So I'm a huge proponent of healthcare. As a nonprofit owner that gives to children who have special needs and disabilities, that's one of the platforms that that's really close to my heart. So you have to have someone that can't just mention it from, touching someone. When someone says education, they can say, hey, my friend is an educator, or my aunt, or, my mom and dad were both educators, but I also am an educator and a member of AEA. So I really, truly know I am in the system getting the paycheck that we need a raise so desperately for in order to be able to educate our students, because it does make a difference. It makes a difference when you have an educator that is motivated to come in and teach the students. And if they're coming in and they're getting beat up because children are getting inadequate medical attention also, they're getting beat up that way too, then you're not going to get an effective product into society. Our children are our next leaders.
Absolutely. And again, I do see questions coming in. So if you will continue to post your questions, and we will save those for the last 5 to 10 minutes of our segments with Ms. Taylor. Mental health issues. We talked about that, and we know, coincidentally enough, Naomi Judd, she passed away over the weekend due to mental health related illnesses. And it's something that we've been hearing about in our society for years and years and years and years to come. One of the things that Neil and I talked about is, he helped to get a bill passed where there is mental assistance for people that served in the war, the Army, the Marines, or what have you, the different branches of the Army. What would you do to work with constituents to get a bill in place that supports everyone when it relates to mental health, regardless of their age, be it a child, adult, a senior adult?
Okay. I understand what you're saying when it says everyone. But I cannot in good faith sit here and sell you a lie.
Gotcha.
There will always be priority over with certain genres of people. Okay. Like the military, they've served in a capacity of, and so it'll trickle down in a certain way. So it will go military, and then public safety. Then you'll go to your doctors.
Gotcha.
Your nurses, those that are basically traumatized while they're doing that. And then it'll trickle to like teachers, and then to everyday people. Where we stand right now, we can be hopeful for an all-encompassing plan that will provide mental health from the government statewide for people, but we also have to be very realistic. A lot of private funding would have to be in tandem or work hand in hand for that to happen. Now, I'm a big proponent of it because, of course, I do that. So private funding is very big, but I would utilize my platform, because your platform is also extremely huge. If you can raise thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get in office, or thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for one cause, you can definitely raise thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for that cause also. District by district, it's a prolific statement that I tell people all the time. If everybody did a little, the one would not have to do so much.
Mm-hmm. And you're speaking truth. That's why I wanted to ask that question. And unfortunately, these are the sad realities that we live in. You know, it's easy to say that, you know, with this state, they're at the point where everybody that's a citizen, child, boy, girl, male, female, old, they can have access to mental health. But do your research. Their
Yes.
makeup is a lot different than Alabama. We could be a lot further too. This is why you have to vote people in office that are going to have your best interests at heart. Again, this is the reason why we're doing these conversations, so you could listen to all of the candidates, and then again, you make the best decision on whom you should vote for.
Right.
So the next question, and I know this is going to hit home because you are an educator, and we do thank you for all of the many years that you have sacrificed your time as an educator teaching our children. When we talk about education, I do want to start with the critical race theory. That bill was actually thrown out, but as Neil did state before, there's a very likelihood that it could come up. I believe that it will. We will see it again.
Yes.
As an educator, and just be transparent. When you first heard of that bill, how did it make you feel?
The way it was structured, it was very dog whistle. Critical race theory. It's just the way it was, it was kind of like when I first heard about Black history. I'm a little bit older, so I remember Black history used to be one day.
Mm-hmm.
It was 3 days. Then it was a week, and now we have a month, and it's the shortest month,
Mm-hmm.
So it's the smaller strides that lead to the larger strides that we do have. I think more so what a lot of people had a problem with was entire American history has been hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been spoon-fed to us into small pieces. So the whole story was not told, and things are glorified. I'll give you a prime example. When you hear about Bonnie and Clyde, they're glorified. When you hear about Wild Bill's, glorified. But when you hear of others that didn't look like the counterparts, they're vilified. And the difference between the two is they're vilified strictly by what the South was built on.
Absolutely.
The South was built on vilification by a color. And it just manifested until finally now all of these things are being uncovered, and people are like, hey, you need to tell us about the full history. And now people are saying they want to protect their little children because they don't want their little children to know about all of this hatred. Well, wait a minute. The Trail of Tears was not just about some people giving some people with blankets with smallpox on it, but that's how children will learn. And that's why they cried and they had the Trail of Tears. And they said they ain't tell them that it was intentionally given. They just intentionally diseased these people to kill them off. I mean, you can't just tell a child at 3 years old, they just intentionally diseased the children, It would seem so horrible. So people are like, I don't want my children to learn about this, but they can turn on the news and they can tell their kids, don't play with this person because you see all the videos with the kids shooting each other and it's a dangerous place. You can tell them about the dangers of everything else, but you're not going to tell them about the dangers of the history that we've had in this country and how we can prevent it from ever happening again. Critical race theory is in its essence a great thing. It really is in its essence. And to be honest, as a parent, I teach critical race theory in essence at home. And I also teach it at school, honestly, because when my students ask me a question about something and I have that open platform for my students, I give them correct answer to it. When they ask me about amendments, because they've been asking me a lot about legislation and they wanted to know the details behind the 13th Amendment. And they wanted to know the details because now they're taking a liking to it and they're asking about Roe versus Wade. They're asking about these things. And now they have that, you plant that seed and now they're just growing and they're learning. People are not going to be able to keep critical race theory away from schools. This is just a pivot right now until we can find something that's more what I like to call palatable.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone likes their history of destruction and madness palatable. And it has not been served up palatable just yet, while people that still have control and power are ready to ingest it. So it'll happen. It just has to come in a more palatable form.
Absolutely. And just a quick story. I can remember when I worked in the after school care program in Vestavia. Oh Lord, it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but that's probably been like over 8 or so years ago. And during Black History Month, although the majority there were white students, we did have black students, and so we were big on celebrating Black History Month. We did get approval from the principal and our district director, and the Watsons goes to Birmingham. That was based on the book. That movie had just come out, so we were approved to see that. And for those of you all who've seen that movie, you do know that some of the scenes, it is basically an accurate depiction of what we've learned in our history books. So during the scene when the girls were bombed in the church, and when they reenacted the scene where the students were being hosed, one of my white male students, he actually started crying. Now, keep in mind, we did send letters home to the parents to forewarn them to know that your child would watch this. If you don't think that this is a good fit for your child, please reply to this, and then we will have them to do some other type of activities. So parents did give consent. And so, as a kind of like warning, when the child's mom picked him up that day, I did have to go out to the car to say, hey, little Johnny, he broke down crying into this when we saw this movie. This may be a teachable moment to start at home. And this is that type of thing. Because one thing we have to learn, that there are good parts of history, there are bad parts of history, but they're all teachable moments. And so I feel like that when we're able to come to the table, whatever race you are, and say, hey, this happened, but this is our where we are as a result of it. You can't shy away from those things that are happening. So I love your stance on critical race theory. Okay, next thing, still dealing with education as a teacher. Um, a lot of teachers have been saying they just don't have the resources to do it anymore. They're overworked, having to take a lot of schoolwork home. And I'm not talking about, doing like a plan book at home or grading papers. They have to take 2 and 3 hours of work at home, work that they should be doing at school, but they seem to be cutting the breaks that teachers get, or the off breaks, shorter and shorter. How do you work with your constituents, not only on a state level, but on a city and a county level, to address these things?
I'm going to echo something Representative Rafferty said. In other countries, the teachers are amongst the highest paid. They are. That's why there's this huge push for charter schools. People know the writing is on the wall. In Title I districts and districts where people's incomes are lower, then people generally don't care. I'm going to give you a story. I had a child who was in my class, and he was in high school, and he was reading on a 3rd grade level. Now, how this child made it to the 11th grade, remember the No Child Left Behind? Remember that? Yeah, that hurt a lot of students.
Right.
And so this child got there, but I noticed that he had hand-eye coordination that was amazing. His dexterity was just amazing. And he learned differently. Now, I'm a product of desegregation. And I was a child that went to summer school that didn't have to go to summer school, because I went to schools that were magnet schools. When I was in Ansley, 20th Street was the line of delineation between blacks and whites. All the black folks went to Western Lola, Jackson, and all the white folks went to Ansley and Baker. Everybody else went to Tug and Tuxedo. That's what it was. So when my parents bought the house in Ansley, they said, hey, you over here, you need to go over to the black school. And they was like, no, I'm zoned for the white school. My mom, they was like, I was going for the white school. And so they was like, well, you're not going. And it didn't work. So what they did was they held a city council meeting. This is why I say you must always vote, 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 vote locally. Vote, 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 vote. They rezoned our block. Rezoned the block. So I didn't take my little brown tail over to Nina with the fluffy hair. And so the Rubinos, the Savagios, and the The Rubinos, the Savagios, and the Marinos lived in that area. The Rubinos sold my mama and daddy the whole block.
Wow.
Okay. Now rezone that. And they did. So Mr. Rubino sold my mama a house directly across the street from the school, rezoned the whole district. And they couldn't. So it got to that point where now, even as a young child, I realized the power that voting local really has, because these people have the power to say whether or not you can go to the school or not, just by saying yay or nay, this small collective of people, this small collective. So I always felt like, hey, we need to figure out a way to do better. The teachers that we had then were amazing. I had amazing teachers like Lillian Flood and Mr. Thomas and Deborah Horn. She was the principal over at it was Fred Horn's wife over at Bush Middle School. So we had these great teachers, awesome teachers. And I noticed that when they start gutting the teachers out, the really great teachers, they were sending them over the mountain and paying them more money. And that left us with glorified babysitters. And so now those teachers that put in the extra time, because they knew that we had 2-parent households and both the parents were working, those teachers were gone. And now we just had glorified babysitters that were saying, they don't pay us enough money. I'm not going to do that. So it's like the grandmothers. The grandmothers then got younger, and so they not meemaw. They ain't making sure the children are fed, clothed, this, that, and the other. You took away that, and the teachers look different. I know I look different for my students, but there is a line of delineation of decorum. Definitely. My teachers, they came dressed to the nines every day. You knew the difference between the teacher and the student. Now you have no clue. You just, it's a wash. I walk up, I'll be like, are you a student or you a teacher? I'm unsure. You're looking around, so you don't know. And then the parents are coming in, and the parents are just as youthful as the students, because they're young and they're undereducated. I'm not going to say uneducated, but undereducated. And so this young man worked really well with his hands. He was in high school, and I just flat out told him, I said, baby, you need to get your GED, because you're not going to make it. You're going to age out. Because he was 18 at that time, and he was taking sophomore classes. And so I hooked him up with a friend, and that friend hooked him up with another friend who got him a job at a well-known contractor company. And they started him out on the Bobcat. Right? He worked so well with it. And then he went to backhoe. And then I saw him at the end of the year, and he came by the classroom because it was time for him to graduate. And his mother showed up at the school ready for him to graduate, and he was not graduating. So she came to the school, and she called me everything but a child of God in front of everyone. And when I say everything, and I said, baby, unnamed child, did you tell your mama you have a job? And he said, no, ma'am. I said, did you tell my son making that money? He paying these bills up in here. He paid a rental center bill. I know he on these streets making that dollar, but he gonna graduate and get this diploma. And I was like, did you tell your mama you had Blue Cross Blue Shield? He said, no, ma'am. I said, tell your mama how much you make an hour. And that little boy was making $23 an hour.
Wow.
With the GED. Do you hear me?
Wow.
$23 an hour. His mother got so upset with me. She said, you tried to make my child better than me, but she didn't say it nicely. She said it meanly. She got in her car. She backed up. She hit my Lexus. She hit my car intentionally. And then she drove off. He was so mortified. So mortified. He was like, I'll pay for it. I promise you, I didn't want him to pay for it. So you ain't got to pay for it, baby. It's fine. It's at this moment that your mother knew that she lost you because you were going to do better than her. Give her some time and she'll be over it. Now, magnify that child 50 times. That's what we're dealing with as teachers. Magnify it 50 times. People don't come to work to get their cars hit. People don't come to work to get dogged out and talk too crazy about the parents. People don't come to work to have people email them and tell them it's not my job to teach my child. That's what they pay you for. And so the teachers, they feel beat down and they feel hurt. You have to be very strong to take that. You have to be very strong. And the main reason why I became a teacher is because I got tired of hearing the complaints. And I got tired of going places and people saying that our children were trash. And I said, okay, well, let me change the lives of a few. And I've been doing it for years. And the pay is not great. It's not. I wonder how they live. I'm like, and y'all gotta wait a whole 30 days for this paycheck. You know what I'm saying? Woo! But the ones that are there and that are dedicated, they need more money. The percentage that they just gave is a move in the right direction, but it's not enough.
Gotcha. And I knew that one would hit home. So we're gonna try to get 3 more questions in, then we're gonna answer our questions from the audience.
Okay.
Working with, and I think what a lot of people don't realize, when you vote for state representatives, they have to stay on a lot of projects. They have to work with city councils and commissioners. So let's talk about what that looks like for you for working with all of those to make things happen. Because for those who watched during our city council, when we had the city council candidates on and the mayor candidates, food deserts came up again. And so what I want to tell everybody, yes, you can be in an area where there's a food desert, but your city councilor, he or she alone, they're going to need some help at a state level. So this is where people like Nina and Neil will come in advocating, saying, yes, we do need a food district, a grocery store, a good grocery store that's going to be representative of our neighborhood.
Yes.
You can't do it alone. So kind of talk about what working with city councilors and commissioners that looks like.
Adamsville, Graysville, Birmingham, the ones that are in Birmingham, Fultondale, you know, I have had the pleasure of meeting, even in Brookside. I've been out in Brookside and met the city councilor, the councilors there also, as well as the mayor. So you have to be proactive instead of reactive. Proactive instead of reactive. I tell people that all the time. As a state representative, I put myself in that position prior to being in the position, prior to being bestowed the gracious wonderfulness of your vote. And I wanted to see what their needs were prior to, instead of waiting and saying, just vote for me, come to just the citizens. You want to go to the people to see what their needs are also. And when I found out in those districts, they didn't know who to contact and what to do in order to even get the ball rolling. They had no clue whatsoever. One of the areas that stuck out to me was Mulga. I went to Mulga and I started knocking on doors, and I ended up knocking on one of the city councilwoman's doors. And I got to talking to her, and I was like, so your state representative now is, and she was like, yeah, I know who that is. I said, do you know who your voters, your citizens will be voting for this time? And she was like, no. And I told her, and she was like, never heard of her. She's never been this way. I said, well, when they redistrict, that it will be the person that will be on the ballot. And I am here to give you that opportunity to see who I am, because this is about being proactive. I know who is there now, right? But given the opportunity of me being there this upcoming election, now I've already made the connection. And in doing that, now I'm already talking to people from Mulga saying, okay, this is where we need to start. I mean, that's how you start that. And then these are your county commissioners, and this is the funds that they can allocate for this. It's just that you need to be able to have the resources in order to get that to happen. Everybody has to work together. Everyone has to work together. A grocery store for them does not have to be huge in that small place of Mulga. It could be very small, like how they do the little small Walmart neighborhood markets. It could be something way smaller than that, but now they're not in a food desert, right? They have a resource to be able to get good quality food, even if it's just doing a small grocery store and then a vegetable, fruit and vegetable stand. Those are things that are viable. We have places that are doing portable grocery stores where they take the grocery store and they bring it in, and 3 days out of the week it drives up, opens up in the stairs, and the people can come and get the groceries. I mean, there are so many viable options that you can have for smaller communities, but you have to let them know where to start to get the resources. I'm a proponent of networking and getting the resources, because I do a lot of things with what I do right now that are not a part of my job description. I'm accessible. I believe in accountability and transparency. We have not had that. Accountability and transparency. If you are casting your vote for me, I am accountable to you. I'm not accountable to big PAC, big firm, this. I'm not accountable to those people. I am accountable to the people who have bestowed their trust in me to represent them. And if they are having a problem with a food desert, then I should be doing everything within my power to reach out my tentacles and hands and fingers to those other people who know, who have the blueprint in their communities, other legislators, because they have information on how they did it, and bring it to District 60 so District 60 will not have a food desert in so many different places.
Awesome. I love it. One last question, and then gosh, I wish we had more time. This is good, but I did. We got a great amount. But one last question. So it's no secret the current state house seat. A lot of the news surrounding it has been Brookside. So when you are elected to this position, how do you plan to bring peace to Brookside to show them that they have a state representative that's going to advocate for them, and they will get the same treatment that all of the other areas in your district have?
I'm already in Brookside. The current representative does not go to Brookside. She hasn't stepped foot in Brookside. She can say that she talked to the old mayor. The old mayor is dead, and the old mayor is the guy who hired the rogue police officers. There's a new mayor there.
But if I'm watching tonight and I see you, and I may not have run into you in Brookside, and I'm like, you know, I'm kind of fed up with current representatives in Brookside promising this, I need a new face. How can you assure me that when you're elected, you're going to come in and listen to every citizen in Brookside?
Transparency, accountability. Everyone is on social media now. And if they're not on social media, they have a cell phone. So even if they don't have the internet, they have a way to receive information. Robocalls are not hard to do. They're not, to get information out. Brookside has a board right there by the town hall that you can put the information on for people to read in order to go. For those who can't read, you simply get it to them on their phone, on a phone call. Having the information readily accessible for when they want to go to it, they can go to a media outlet in order to get that information. These things are not hard to do. It's just that they're not done for some reason. Because a lot of people don't like transparency. Because you have transparency, you know what you have with that? Accountability. You have to be accountable for the information that you're putting out. So if you're going to put the information out, you've got to produce. You need to produce, because people are going to want to see the production of what you say you are going to do. So if I say accountability and transparency, then that means I'm there. The true tale of a person who really wants and does the job, they do the job even when they're not getting paid to do the job. I was in Brookside before this happened. I was in Brookside during the time of it happening. I go to Brookside now. I talk with the citizens in Brookside now. I go to the baseball games out in Brookside now. I talk with the citizens in Brookside. The current representative is not doing that and has not done that in 3 terms. That is a huge problem. And it's an election year. So I understand people pop up during an election year and everyone is tired of that. I am tired of it too. That's one of the things that I can definitely promise to not do. I can promise that. I can't promise you the world and say I can change District 60 overnight. Can't say that. However, accountability allows me the accessibility to reach out to mayors, to city council people, to neighborhood association presidents, neighborhood association officers, to county commissioners, and we can all work together. We can all get together and say, hey, this is what we need here. How can we make that happen? Because District 60 can be the blueprint for other districts. I tell people all the time, I want District 60, I want people from 54 to look at District 60 and say, hey, we want to be like District 60. Even the small town of Moga or Brookside has like kayaking and canoeing. It's beautiful over there. Absolutely gorgeous. It's beautiful land. And it just needs to be developed. It just needs to be known, and people have to know this. It's just this little oasis tucked away, and we haven't been there. So if you want someone who's going to be proactive and not reactive, to not show up and say, oh my God, they're doing people wrong in Brookside in 2022 on an election year when it's been going on for years prior, then you need to be casting your vote for someone who actually cares. You need to be casting your vote for somebody who is effectively trying to make the change now, even though they are not in the position. I'm not in the position, but I'm working now to make things better now.
Okay. Awesome. So let's go ahead and ask these questions. First question is, will you advocate for Medicaid expansion?
Yes.
Okay.
Wholeheartedly, 100%. It needs to be expanded so much that they just can't breathe. We need to be looking like Sweden. I'm serious. Literally. I mean, we're losing too much. Like if someone asked me, I'm not going to just beat around the bush for it. I am advocating for it. We need medical care.
Okay.
Bad.
All right. Next question. What are your thoughts on the gas tax, the grocery tax, and the solar tax?
Well, we know somebody voted on the gas tax, but I ain't going to throw no shade. Sips tea.
No, I ain't going to let you do that. No,
I look at it and say, where is it benefiting us? And we really don't need a grocery tax. What do we need a grocery tax for? We don't need it. It's just as simple. It's groceries. Inflation is already hitting us at an all-time high. And now we're going to tax that too. People are not going to be able to afford consumable, viable, healthy food. No. And no.
And then what about a solar tax?
Now the solar tax, that's one of those little gray areas. Because certain people can afford it, some people can't. You know, it's one of those gray areas. So until I do a lot more research, the research that I found on it, I'm leaning right now to say no at this moment. However, I'm finding key points in talking to other people from other places, because I went to Boston not too long ago, and I went to Florida at another time, and they actually have a few bills that are there in legislation, and I'm going over theirs to see exactly how that works for those communities. So until I have more fundamental information on it, on how we can make that viable for our citizens here in Alabama, I don't want to make any promises on that. You must make sure you have all of the information before you decide to go, yeah or no, because that's how I am about casting my vote. If you vote for me and you want me to vote, I'm going to read all of the legislation and then find a viable way that if I need to make an amendment to it or make it better, then we'll, go to the mattresses and make that happen. So for me, I need a lot more information to solidify how I would want to make that better. Because right now, as it stands, it's like, it's a gray area. It's gray.
Last question. It comes with the comment first. I know you have a lot of ideas of what the communities need because you live in the community, but how would you hear what the citizens of the communities feel they need?
Right. Your representatives are supposed to come, or at least have someone come to places like your neighborhood association meetings. They go when it's an election year. This is where you hear people talk. In the community, just ask. I work 24 hours at a time. A state legislator does not work 24 hours at a time. And if you're not working 24 hours at a time, if you're, like I said, if you live in the community, if I live in District 60, I should shop in District 60. I should eat in District 60. I should attend the places in District 60. I should be at the schools in District 60. And if you're in those places, those are your people. Those are your constituents. They're going to tell you what they need.
Awesome. I love it. So our last question, we know that Sunday is Mother's Day, and happy early Mother's Day to you.
Thank you.
Take about a minute or so to tell us what your mom means to you.
That's my rock. My mom is a unit. So my mom is actually a young mother. She had me at a young age. She was pregnant at 16. So I went to high school with my mom as a Winona Dragon. So when she goes to her reunions, they say I'm a Winona baby too. I'm a dragon baby too. I actually went to college with my mom when she went to Miles College. And I'm talking about when Miles College had a dirt road. So I was at Miles too. And that front office was the dance. It was the African American dance school. So they did African American arts up there in that very front building. And it was just amazing. And the culture was amazing. And all of that culture was given to me by my mom. My mom was the first person that I saw to say that you are able to pursue your dreams and still be a mother. You're able to jump leaps and bounds and still be a mom. And in doing that, I noticed that from my grandmother. So my mom was that direct reflection of my grandmother, who was also a young mother. So just because one person is a young mother and then, that child becomes a young mother does not mean that that has to continue, because I wasn't a young mother. I was done at 30. So, but that reliant, strong factor, like my mom was a teacher. That was one of the main reasons. She has a motto. She was like, you can complain about it or you can fix it. You can complain about it or you can fix it. My dad would say something cliche like, don't cry over spilled milk. And I'm like, I don't even like milk. If it was spilled, I just mop it up, But my mom was like, you can complain or you can fix it. And that has always resonated with me.
Awesome. So we want to thank you for joining us tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And before we let you go, tell people how they can contact you. As we stated earlier, still 21 days until the election. So Nina needs people to canvass with her, make calls on her behalf, even work with her on election day, possibly. Tell how they can contact you.
Yes, so you can reach me at votefornina.com, votefornina.com. And on that website, you can click and it emails directly to me. I have it to where it comes directly to me. You can email me if you would like to canvass with me last 21 days. And my canvassing is so fun. We have a ball. And working on election day is definitely one of the things that I would love to have more people there. So on election day, if you would like to work at the polls, I'm doing it in 4-hour increments. So you can take the morning, the afternoon, or the evening, because it's 7 in the morning to 7 at evening from open to close. So you can take the morning, the afternoon, or the evening, and food is provided. So you don't have to worry about, I need to grab me some breakfast or some lunch or some dinner. I have people that are actually running to do that. And just come out and have a really, really great time. I'm just not that person to push things off to people and say, vote for Nina. That's so dated now. I'm just happy people are actually coming out to vote. So I want people to know that your vote matters. It matters to me, and we definitely can have better because we deserve better.
Well, Nina, thank you so much for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been our Tuesday edition of Perspective Meet the Candidate 2022. This has been our state representative night. We'll be back on Monday. You may hear some state representatives. It's just according to who books. So let me say this before we end the podcast. I think that me and my team have contacted just about everybody that's running in this race. Early registration is encouraged. Don't come to me the week before election talking about you need a spot, because you're probably going to come up on the short end of the stick. We're working very, very, very hard to get you scheduled. You will have 40 minutes to come on. So please, if you have not heard from me, check your emails and check Messenger, because I personally did message everyone. So the information is there. We look forward to scheduling you. And again, happy Mother's Day to all the moms. Special shout out to my mom, Mrs. Jan Vines. If you watch this podcast any amount of time, you already know how I feel about my mom. She's my rock. She's mama. You only get one. So again, happy Mother's Day to all the moms. And we will be back on Monday. So as we always say, keep the faith. If you missed the entire podcast with Representative Rafferty, go ahead and watch the entire thing. And last night we had our Jefferson County School Board candidates on. Go ahead and watch that. We just want you all to be informed, and we want everyone to rush to the polls and you vote, because as your background says, your vote counts. Your vote counts. So that's it in a nutshell. And have a great evening, and we will see you back on next Monday.